Welcome to the Sean Trey Show. I've got an interesting guest with me today. Now, would you like to tell people who you are and what you do?
My name is Brett Maupin. I am a farrier. I've been a farrier for 13 years now, and I started a TikTok, and then I started a YouTube channel, and it's kind of taken off. So basically, that's what I do is I shoot horses, and somehow I got into the realm of filming it and putting it on the internet. So
So for people who
yeah, that's what
don't
I
know,
do.
what is a farrier?
A farrier is basically a term for a blacksmith. So it's somebody that takes care of horses' feet. Basically, the term farrier came from back in the 1800s. The farrier kind of took care of everything. He would take care of the feet, but he would also do like veterinarian stuff. So he would take care of if the horse was sick, but also take care of the feet and all of that. So nowadays, that term is just used for somebody that just is taking care of the feet, and that's a profession in itself now. So basically, what I do is I go around. I have a trailer attached to my truck, and I would drive to someone's ranch or farm, and depending on the amount of horses they have, I would take care of them. So and that ranges from just giving them a basic trim. I just take a little bit of foot off, keep everything, clean and neat, and then also, if there's any type of lameness issues or if the horse has any problems, I'm going to put on some type of shoe that would help, through a vet recommendation, keeping the horse sound and keeping the horse doing what it does, whether that's a English horse, it's a jumper, a dressage horse, or it's a Western horse, it's a team roping horse, cutting, all that stuff. So, in the way that I would set it up kind of depends on the discipline. So, yeah, that's basically what the job is, and yeah, so I just kind of go around and I'll show up at your place if you call me, and if you're like, hey, Brett, I got two horses and I need XYZ, I come out and take care
That's
of them
awesome.
for you. So
And there's a lot to unpack there. First and foremost, like asking about the profession, talking about your TikTok. But first of all, that's really interesting. Like, I kind of fell into this because when let me see how to set this up. When I am trying to get my daughter to sleep, my wife is a professional singer and she'll often go out to shows, and it's my job to get my daughter to sleep. And my daughter does not like to go to sleep. And so I'll be sitting there just kind of like, just sitting there with her while she's tossing and turning. And I was just finding videos on Instagram and Facebook, and suddenly I fell into this world of trimming, like trimming horses like hooves,
yeah,
and like I just saw a couple of these videos, and it's become like this thing. There's that. There's a couple guys that I follow that do cows hoofs trimming as well. It's
yeah, like the Hoof
the hoof
GP or whatever that
GP, and
guy's name is. Yeah,
that guy's
yeah,
making
yeah,
some
yeah.
money now too, man. He's
Dude, that guy's killing it, and his setup is like so perfect too because he has him in that stanchion,
right.
so he can just set the camera up and
Yep.
and do his thing.
Yeah, and he started.
It's a
I followed him for a long time. And like in the beginning, he was like just it's like basics. Like dude's got the nice truck now. He's got all
yeah,
logoed out, and I was just like, wow, that's really awesome. I'm happy for him. But like that's one of the really interesting things
yeah,
though too. And this is what I want to pick at. Like I've been doing media for companies and people for a long time, and celebrities,
hmm,
and the formula was pretty straightforward. You create kind of this long form content, you try to find a story. Then TikTok came along, and it's a whole different thing. And like the TikTok videos from, and companies are still figuring it out. People are still figuring it out. But like what, because
yeah,
it's like little dancing, like people just, it's wild. But then
yeah.
people have been crushing it with content like what you're doing, man. And so talk to me. How did you get onto TikTok, and how did that whole thing, just take off?
Okay, so I'm probably like you in the sense that when I first heard about TikTok, I just assumed it was like a bunch of kids like doing like
Yeah.
dances, and I didn't really know what it was. And the funny part is, before I started all of this, I took like a social media hiatus like 6 months before. So I literally didn't have social media for like 6 months, and then I was at dinner with a group of friends, and my buddy's girlfriend goes, "Hey, you're a farrier, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And she goes, "Did you know that they're famous on TikTok?" And I was like, "What does that even mean? Like, what do you mean that they're famous on TikTok?" And she like shows me her phone, and there's like people trimming feet on there, and I'm like, "That's really weird." So then I just started, it's what I do for a living, and I've been doing it at that point for 12 years, you know. And so I looked at it, and I'm like, wow, this is really weird. And I looked at the views, and it was like 90
No,
million
it's
views. I'm like,
insane, dude.
what?
It's
I'm like, what?
insane.
What do you mean? So I don't know, man. I just was like, oh, I'm gonna just try it. I'm gonna just try it. So I just downloaded TikTok, had no idea what I was doing, and I went to work that next Monday because it was like a Friday night. And that Monday I went and I filmed 3 videos, and it was just me like knifing some feet and like burning on a shoe and doing like typical stuff. And I was like, okay. And I posted those, and they got like 40,000 views, which is pretty
Yeah,
insane. And I'm like, that's weird. And then I went to work like a couple days later, and I have like an apprentice that
yeah.
helps me. So I have a guy that helps me, he
Holds
comes
the
with me, and
camera.
that's who does most of the. Well, funny part is like he came to learn how to shoe horses, and I got into this weird place where I'm like, here, hold this camera, like. So the fourth video I ever posted, I think it's like currently has like 35 million views. The fourth
Oh my
video I ever
god.
posted. I'm just like, I don't even know what to do with that. So I didn't really take it serious until I got to like, because all my friends would be like, "Look, Brett's TikTok famous or whatever," and I'm like, I don't even know what that means. And then I got to like 500,000 followers. I'm like, whatever. And then I hit 1 million, and then that's when people started contacting me and like, "Hey, are you gonna like take this serious?" I'm like, I probably should, right? Like this is, people work really hard to get to where I'm at, and I kind of just like fell into this thing. And then I started contacting other creators and like asking like, "Hey, like, how do I go about doing this?" And they're like, "You need to make a YouTube channel." And I'm like, "Okay." So I made a YouTube channel, and my second video I ever posted has like 67 million views.
Holy shit.
So like I don't know, I don't really know what to do with that, right? Like I didn't work this hard to like get, like I feel like very fortunate that I got into this position, right? Like I got this, um, you know, I got this like huge platform and all the success like very
Yeah.
easily, but now I guess run with it and just keep doing what I'm doing. But it's really weird. I was never like a big social media guy. Like you can look at my Instagram. I've posted in like however long I've had it, maybe like 10 times. Like I'm not a big poster. It's not like every day like here I am. But now I'm in this weird spot where every week I gotta post like 5 videos and make a YouTube. I have an editor now and that I like talk with about thumbnails and yeah, it's just a weird place
It's
I got
awesome.
to. So
It's awesome. Well, and it's awesome because like, and I'm not gonna lie though, like my wife and my daughter will like just start binge watching some crazy stuff at times. And there's a couple of videos that they really love. One of the things is I don't know, but these are also like TikTok famous, like the zit popping videos. I don't know if you've seen those,
oh
but people
yeah, I've seen
people are
them.
just
I'm
like,
just like I
I can't
can't do
handle
it.
some of them. My wife sends it to me. I'm like, I can't roll with that. I can't. But like,
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
but it's like when my daughter was like watching, the horses and hoof getting trimmed, and she was just like, it's so satisfying. Like, and she's 6, and she's just like, I can't look away. It's just so satisfying to watch. And like that's the crazy part is like,
Yeah.
I'm not a farrier, but I know now all the steps to trim.
Right,
Like I know all the
right.
steps like that you take to
Yeah,
pull off the horseshoe, and then you go through, and
yeah,
then you got to clean out all the stuff, and then after that you come in with
yeah.
the knife and you're working at this end way, and then you got to get that second
Mm-hmm.
the switch up knife, and it's like I know the steps, man, and that's the crazy part.
Right,
It's like
right. Yeah.
people know it, and like there's this whole following, and it's like 67 million. I mean, it's a thing, and like
That's just on
just on
YouTube.
YouTube on.
Like TikTok is a that yeah, like TikTok is I think my the most viewed video I have on TikTok currently has like 270
That's
million views.
unreal.
I don't even know what to
Yeah.
do with that. Like I don't even know. I don't know. I just posted it and like that one was weird. I just posted it and within I don't know 15 minutes it had half a million views. I was like this is
You know what's
crazy.
crazy? Crazy.
It
This is the nut thing. Like the amount of time that goes into consuming this stuff. There was this one interesting fact that was like, remember Gangnam Style, Oppa Gangnam Style.
yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah,
so,
yeah,
so
yeah,
they
yeah,
did
yeah.
the math on that song for the number of views it had by the minutes it was, And they realized if it was one person sitting down and watching Gangnam Style for the collective time that it has been viewed, it was something like 10,000 years. It,
That's
it's
insane.
insane, man. It was like
That's
ten
insane.
thousand years of Gangnam Style just
Yeah.
playing, and
Yep.
like that's
Yep.
crazy. But like that's like the same thing. There's like millions of
hmm
people have now consumed and just been like, yeah, show me that hoof getting trimmed, man. It's wild.
For me, I think that a lot of people, it's more of like a not shock and awe, but like it's just like, oh, I didn't really realize like that's what went
Right?
into it. And the funny part is like I've told people, in person, they'll be like, what do you do for a living? And I'll be like, oh, I'm a farrier. And they're like, what's that? And I just explain it. I put shoes on horses' feet. And I've literally had people be like, that's not a real job. And I'm like, yeah, well, it is because I get
Yeah,
paid to
right?
do it, so it's a real job. But I think people like really forgot that that's still a
Yeah.
thing, right? Because let's say in the 20s and the 30s and before that, that was I was the mechanic. I was the guy you
Yep.
took your car
Yep.
to. You know
Yep.
what I mean? Like that's kind of where it all stemmed back from, and then we got into this place where it went less from transportation to, now it's just a
Yeah.
hobby that people kind of like forgot that that was a thing, but people have been doing this to horses' feet for like I think the first thing that they can trace back to actually like being a shoe was like they took palm fronds like the I think the Indo-Chinese or something like the Mongolians would take palm fronds and they would weave them up horses'
That's wild.
legs and they would keep them on the horses with them, and when they would just wear out they just put new
That's
ones
wild.
on because they've been traveling over the
Yeah.
landscape for so long, and that was the transportation, and that's basically what this whole thing stemmed from, right? Like you would take your horse and you would ride it, and if I just rode a horse through the mountains, right, with no protection over his feet, you'd get only so far and then the horse couldn't
Yep.
walk because you got to think of as the foot, um, it is like your fingernail, but it's a much tougher version
Yeah.
of it, right? But you think of the ground as like
Yeah.
sandpaper, so it's just like over and over and over and over and over again, you're gonna wear all that down. So that's why they had to figure something else out. But back to what I was saying is like I think it was such an integral part of like being a human being. Like horses got
Yeah.
us
Yeah.
here. That's what it was. It's what we did. But now people forget about it. And I think like the part about TikTok that's weird is people see that and they kind of realize like, oh yeah, like there's horses, you know, there's got to be people that take care of them, so they're just like so like, oh
Yeah.
wow, that's what you do, and I don't think they really realize like that's what goes into it. So I think that's a lot of what I think that's a lot of
Did you
the
ever
hype, I
did
guess
you
you
ever
could call
see
it.
the TV show back in the day, This Old House? Bob Vila.
I
It was old
haven't,
school.
no.
Like I mean,
Mm-mm.
it was in the 70s or 80s, 80s, and the guy would just go in and like they have pimp your house or pimp your ride and stuff. This
Mm-mm.
was like literally this dude would go in and just take these old houses and flip them. And what was crazy about it
Right.
was like it wasn't like now the shows are all cosmetic and it's like oh yeah, take a look at this. It's all about big personalities. This guy was like,
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna show you
Yeah.
how to create this correct bevel on this thing and replace this piece in the banister. And
Yeah.
it's like it was wild because like and like you had said, there are jobs that people have had for thousands of years. The
Mm-hmm.
other type of video I love to binge watch is like the Japanese style carpentry. Like,
Yeah.
dude,
Yeah. I know exactly
those
what you're talking
super
about.
exact cuts and these things fit
Yep.
together, and there's this one wood pin that
Yep.
drops in. You're like, whoa!
Yeah, and just beautiful, like just treated wood, and yeah, it's.
And I think that's like what you're getting at though is like we have forgotten like so much of like it may be
hmm
like 500 years or even 100 years because then that's what you're pointing out the rate of change 100 years ago a farrier was like your mechanic, but now it's
hmm
like so maybe in 100 years with automation like people are going to just forget like like taxi driver or something. That's going to be a job that will disappear when cars become automated.
Absolutely, yeah,
And they'll be like,
absolutely.
you guys used to
Um,
drive places?
right, right, and I mean, I don't know how old your children are, but there's a good possibility that they might not get a driver's license
Right?
ever, right?
Right?
I don't know how old they are, but there's definitely, kids that are like, I have a nephew and he's almost a year old, and I honestly, he might have a driver's license. I don't know, but it wouldn't surprise me if he never
Well, I mean,
had
like
one,
I remember when I was
right?
a kid, and like we would joke about like maybe someday there's gonna be telephones that you can see the person, and I mean it was like like you're
Yeah,
like that's never gonna happen, but that dude FaceTime is
yeah,
it's right there.
yeah. Now we're doing it
Yeah,
right
right.
now.
And
Yeah.
it's like, and that's the crazy part. I'm in Vietnam. Like I'm in Southeast Asia right now, and like that's the craziest part. Like
Yep.
you can connect with people around the world, and it's so mind-blowingly fast that things change,
Oh
and
yeah,
things have become
yeah.
obsolete or seemingly obsolete, but that they're still there. And
Mm.
like there's still, and that's what I love about what is it, Mike Rowe and his Dirty Jobs each series, and
Oh
the
yeah, yeah,
guy's
yeah.
great because
Hmm.
he's going out and going. No matter we live in I live in the middle of Saigon, and plumbing here is different, and it's really wild. And there's this one job here that's nuts, and it's the of all the jobs, and it's literally like a sewer diver. And so because there's a lot of plastic pollution in Vietnam and in Southeast Asia in general, and so and I'm explaining. So every once a year we get like in front of my house, like right almost in our house is where like the access point is to the large sewer line that goes up and down the street. And so
Right.
they will be like come to our house sometimes and like, hey, we need to clean out the line. It's gotten backed up with plastic. We're like, okay. And so I was expecting, I've seen people do this in like New York and stuff and seen videos, and the guys are wearing a full
Hmm.
hazmat suits with diving stuff.
Yeah.
Dude gets in here. He's wearing a pair of coveralls, and he just lowers himself
No
down in.
way.
Yeah, no, I'm serious. He's wearing a pair of sandals and coveralls, and he just lowers himself down in, and he's got a bucket, and he's just. And I watched it, and I was like, and like, because we have to have someone down there watching, because we got all these motorcycles and stuff, and like I'm watching this, and I can't look away, and like he lowers himself down to like this, and he's just, and he does it by feel, and he's just pulling stuff out in these buckets, tossing it aside, and then when they're done, they get a hose out and they hose the guy off, and I was just like,
Dude,
oh my
what?
god. And I'm just telling my wife, I was like, oh my god, like I can't believe that. And my point being is we have this framework, whether you're from this country, that country, of like, well, but that's like, you go back 500 years, to Europe, and everyone was tossing bedpans, like leftovers out the window in
In
the
the
street,
street. Yeah, in
any
the
guys out
street.
there,
Yeah.
so that's the way it was,
Right.
and
Yeah, and now like you couldn't pay someone, I feel like in the States anyways, to do that job. No
oh,
way. There's
no
no
way.
way.
Or the person's making like, this is the crazy part. This is like what Mike Rowe points out is like they'd be making like 500 grand a year because of like, like there's this really high pay for people. People don't want to do that anymore. You know what I mean? Understandably, I don't want to climb the sewage,
Yeah.
but like it's nuts, or we've automated it, or we're gonna have robots that do it. You know what I mean?
For me, it's funny you say that because my trade, I can't find anybody to help me. Honestly,
That's
like there's
wild.
a when I because I just moved from California to
Okay.
Texas. I'm in North Texas now. I have family here and stuff. So I just figured that would be a better spot for me to kind of be. But anyways, back in California, I had two guys that helped me. Um, One was like 19 years old, and he's just a horse kid. Like I team rope a lot. That's like my
Yeah.
hobby that I do with my horses. And I'd rope with him and stuff. But he helped me, and he was the one that really helped me with the filming and stuff like that. And he was a good friend of mine. But he was 19, and then there was another kid that was like 20. I think he's 22 or 23, but that's it. That's all we could find. And I'm talking about like multiple farriers in that area. Couldn't find anybody to really help
That's
us.
wild.
And because it's a trade, and it's hard work, it really
Yeah.
is. And it's not good for your body. I don't know if
But
you understand the
you gotta
position
kind
that
of.
you're just. Oh no, you're bent over at
Oh
the
god.
waist. You're completely bent over. So you have the foot in between your feet or in between your legs, and you're just kind of
Oh
hunched
man.
over. Um, so it's really hard on your back. and it's long hours, and but I don't have a boss. That's the trade
Yeah.
off. Like I don't. When I was an apprentice, you have a boss, but it's kind of like a paid apprenticeship. I got paid to learn how to do this, and then I kind of migrated into doing it by myself. But now I have the freedom to, like, I saved up some money and I moved to Texas, and I don't have anybody being like, you got to be, I get to kind of go at my own pace and figure stuff out, and not have a boss. But that's the trade off. But nowadays people don't want to. They want, like, right now they want, no, I want to make this money and not have a boss. It's like, well, you could be an apprentice for 5 6 years
Yeah.
and really figure this out, and then for the rest of your life you have a skill that you know how to do. You don't need a boss, and it kind of travels anywhere. There's horses everywhere. Like, I just picked here because I have family, and this is pretty
Yeah, I
dense
was gonna
horse
say it's horse
country.
country.
But oh yeah, um, but going back to, like, the trades and stuff, people just don't want to work, and I understand not wanting to go to, like, a corporate office and sit there and work for some giant conglomerate and for eight, whatever. But for me, I couldn't sit inside all day. I just couldn't do it. But being able to have that freedom, like when I want to go, I just decide, hey, this weekend I'm going to go duck hunting with my friends in Colorado. I don't have to
Yeah.
ask anybody. I just make sure all my stuff's done and I go do my stuff. That freedom, I don't think I could ever go back to the other way. I've had a boss before. I've worked construction and stuff like that, but um, those dirty jobs, I make a pretty good living, honestly. Like, just to give you a reference, if I work, I can shoot a horse anywhere from $150 to $250 to shoot one, and that takes me about an hour and a half, depending on the horse. So I can do 5 or 6 of those a day with a helper. And mind you, it's still a lot of work. But that's a pretty good living with no
Yeah.
boss, right? Like, I don't
Well,
know.
and
I don't really know any
has your
other.
YouTube driven, customers and clients? Has it created a bit of a sales
Um,
funnel, or are these a different like groups of people?
that, like, I go back to saying, is, like, I think most of the people that watch this are people just kind of like, what is this?
Mm,
More than your typical um, horse person. But I've definitely been contacted by people to shoe their horses, and want. I've actually been, like, asked by people, oddly enough, in, um, Dubai and, like, crazy places like that, and they're like, "Hey, we'll pay you to come do this," and I, like, give them a crazy number, and they're like, "No," but it's a lot of crazies, honestly. Like, um, and I'm not gonna throw any shade at horse people, but I kind of can because I am one. Horse people are kind of nuts, so you know, I like to work for um, serious horse people. I don't really like to do the backyard stuff. The people that are like, oh yeah, I just got this pasture pet
yeah,
out
yeah.
here. I like to work for people that are more on the professional side of stuff. Just because, like, for me, I like to do the best job I can, and I want them to, like, appreciate what I'm doing more than just like, hey, come do this. And most of the time, those type of horses are uh, much more well behaved
Like,
than your typical, just, yeah, because the horses that I film, obviously I kind of pick the horses that are going to have the best temperament for what I'm trying to do,
that's
because
that's
at
what
the end of the day you're
that's what I'm
working on
wondering. Because, like, I my dog does not like his nails trimmed. We've got guinea pigs. It does not like
right.
it. They don't. And, and I was thinking the horses. I got kicked by a horse when I was a kid, and so
Hmm.
my uncle had about, like, my uncle was a wealthy doctor, and he had 15 Arabians, you know, and
Okay.
beautiful barn, and grew up around horses, and I got tagged once. Luckily, it was just in the leg, but dude, yeah, that hurt for a week plus, man, and
Oh yeah, it's dangerous. It's very dangerous. I don't work on, well, I say that, but I don't really like to work on horses that get
yeah.
sketchy at all. If I can help it, sometimes you got to just kind of do what you got to do, and that's, like, the sketchy part of the job. But there's also that aspect of, like, it's also a live, it's a living
Yeah.
animal. So at the end of the day, this horse could be completely broke, and the nicest horse that you've ever worked on, and a gust of wind comes through and knocks a paper bag off something, and it just loses its shit while you're underneath it, and it's just not, it's going to be dangerous. Like, honestly, I broke my foot 2 3 years ago on like a 22-year-old, like the most dead broke kids horse around. Like it was just a freak deal. I was shoeing a back foot, and he just stepped like straight down on the side of my foot, and I got like kind of stuck underneath him, and just broke my foot. And it was like, honestly, this horse you could take a 4-year-old child, set it on top of this horse, and like turn him loose,
And it would be
you
no
know,
problem.
and
Yeah.
nothing. Yeah, you would never have to worry about it. And that's what I mean is like it's just so unpredictable. So, um, yeah, you always got to be on your toes, and you always got to be just watching. You got to have like a little bit of horsemanship to get around them to understand like, when I look at this horse, I can kind of tell like this horse is not really into what I'm doing, or like they don't really care.
Yeah.
So it's yeah, it's a weird situation, but
Well,
I don't
you
know.
point out one thing
I
there
can
that's really interesting that I've always been fascinated by. Like, um, what was it? There was this word that like the Inuit people up in Alaska, in Canada and in Alaska
hmm
area, they have like I don't know the exact number, but it's like something like 40 words for different types of snow. You know,
Oh,
and
interesting.
like the down here in Vietnam, I was riding with my daughter today and my wife, and we were like, it's hot. Well, it was like, well, what type of hot? Well, this is, my wife's like, I hate this type of heat. And I was like, and I knew exactly what she's talking about. It was the heat right before it rains. And it's a specific vibe type of heat,
Yeah.
and you just know it. And it's
hmm
like this heat that just, it feels like you got this wet blanket wrapped or like a hot blanket wrapped around you. And it's
Yep.
specific vibe. And my daughter's like, how do you know it's going to rain? And we're like, it's just
You
you
just
just you
you
just
just
feel it
feel it.
because we've lived through so many rainy seasons. We know what it's going to feel like, and that's the interesting thing. Like, I'm a dog person. I've grown up with tons of dogs, and we've had all different types of dogs, and you learn to read an animal. You learn to read the weather. You learn to read things with familiarity. And it's like, but the more you're around it, the more familiar you are, the more you understand it. And like, that's the thing that I remember is like I could never read a horse when I was a kid. My cousin and my sister were horse people, and they were like, "That horse, he's gonna kick your ass. You need to back up." And then and I
Yeah,
was just
yeah.
like, "What do you mean?" And they're like, "Yeah, just his whole body language, everything's going on." And I mean, I can do that with a dog. Like my daughter was playing with our neighbor's dog the other day, and I was like, "You need to back up right now." And she's like, "What?" And I was just like, "That dog's not cool right now." And just give him space.
Yeah.
So how much does that play into it? Just this innate understanding that you have after so many years.
So I've owned horses. I think we were like four. I was like 4 years old when my parents had always kind of been around horses, but when like me and my older sister got our own horses and stuff, I was very young. So I've just been around them my entire life. I don't really know what it's like to not be around them. But the point that you're asking is like if you can't read the body language of like the animal that you're going to work on, you should probably do something else
Yeah.
because it's a very important fact, and it just goes into like everything that you're doing as far as safety. Because I've been kicked in the face. I've been kicked in the face, and I wasn't even shoeing. I was loading a horse in a horse trailer, oddly enough. And I got really lucky. Like he just barely tapped me. But it all starts for me like when I show up. I'm reading the situation as soon as I get to your. If I come and shoe a horse for you, I'm reading the situation as soon as I show up.
Yeah.
When I pull in, I'm looking at your place. Is everything kind of organized? Is there stuff everywhere? Because that's going to give me a sense of you. And okay, are you like an organized person? Are you kind of like a messy person? I'm going to look at your horse. And that's just going to give me a general sense of the entire thing because I only see the horses every 6 weeks. The owner sees them every single day, and they have the biggest influence on them.
Yeah.
And if the person is able to put that influence on them in a positive way, where they're handling them all the time, they keep their feet clean, they're like all of that stuff. Generally, the horses are going to be much easier to work
Yeah.
on. Um, but if I show up and there's stuff everywhere and there's like a railroad tie in the horse
Yeah.
stall and there's you guys haven't cleaned the stall in 6 months, like I'm like, this just gives me the vibes. And then I see the horse, and a lot of the times for me, if you look at a horse's eye, that will tell you a lot about how the horse feels.
Mm,
If their eye is big and you can see a lot of white in their eye, that means that they're looking at you like, what is going
mm,
on? But if they have like a calm demeanor and everything, their ears are kind of forward, their eyes are very just symmetrical. You can't really see any whites of their eyes, and they just kind of like look at you. You're gonna have a good sense that this horse is probably just gonna let you walk up and catch it. So for me, being able to read that animal, and I can read a lot too by when I get underneath it because I'm holding that physically holding part of the animal's
yeah,
body. Um, so that gives me a pretty good sense too. And going back to the person too, when I talk to somebody, I'm reading
yeah,
them because people will lie to you. And for me, that's a dangerous proposition because if you go, "Oh yeah, my horse doesn't kick. Oh, my horse isn't scared of this. Oh, blah blah blah," and then I get underneath and something goes wrong, and they're like, "Oh, he's never done that before," and I'm like, "That's weird. Like, why have you gone through 5 different horseshoe? Like it just
yeah.
like it starts to all make sense." So it kind of goes to both things. It's like I look at the horse, and for me, reading the horse is the easiest part, right? Like I can look at this horse and be like, okay, this horse looks pretty calm. Everything looks, where it should be. But getting the general sense of the entire situation is I think what keeps you safer because people are just gonna they're full of shit. They want their horses done and they wanna go about their
There was
day.
you're tapping on something that I absolutely love, and that's the concept of like situational awareness. And I'm a huge proponent of. I'm a black belt in judo, and a couple of my
Okay.
judo teachers were like former military guys, and they were like always like keep your head on a swivel, paying attention to everything, watching everything. My dad is the exact opposite. My dad is in no way a military guy. He's just like trusting and loves everyone. And when he came to visit here, like it's actually really safe here in Southeast Asia. You're never gonna. People are not
Hmm.
gonna get killed or murdered or stuff, but petty crime is crazy high. Like pickpockets or, one of the things that's most common is snatching phones. People will be out on the street holding their phone up, and someone just comes up on a motorbike, snatches it, and they run and they dash. And they're extremely skilled at these snatch and grabs on a bike. And my dad was just walking through the you know through the market and just was like, hey, look at this over here, look at this over here. And my friend Micah was like, your dad's getting tailed right now. Did you see that? And I looked over, and there were straight up 2 guys that were just making their way slowly behind him. And so I was like, I need to corral them. I corralled my mom and my dad. I was like, you guys are going back to the bus. You guys are going to wait there, and then we'll bring you out and walk you through. They totally were. They were getting totally trailed by these people. And my friend Micah has got great situational awareness, and he always pays attention to that stuff. And one of the things that I love, we ride motorcycles here. And one of the things that I love about riding a motorcycle, and I think it's going to be similar in many ways to riding a horse, you can't get distracted when you're riding a motorcycle. There's zero, and especially here, like one of the things too, where like there's this map or this chart about what it's like to drive in Vietnam, and it's like which direction can you go in a lane, and literally people go every single direction possible. That's why you got to drive way slower. And when I just was back in the States recently, and I was blown away by how fast everyone drives, because like people are just clipping down the street, and I was just like, oh my god, everyone's going so fast because because you anticipate what other people are going to do. Here, you don't know when someone's going to come out from this side of the road or turn this way, and so you just got to
Right.
kind of just look everywhere. There's this one scene in the Matrix where the original Matrix, where Neo is
Hmm.
testing out and it's the simulation with the girl with the red dress, and I tell
Yeah.
everyone that's what it's like to drive here. If you for 2 seconds look this way and get distracted by anything over here, you come back and there's someone pulling in front of you. So
Yeah.
you always have to be, situationally aware at all times. I feel we live in such a distracted society. Like everyone's all over the place. And I love to like that you talk about you get there, and from the moment you get there you're reading the situation.
Yeah. You have to because that's the other thing about what I'm doing is I go places by myself and um A lot of times, I don't know these people. I don't know, I don't tell anybody where I'm going. Like I don't disclose with everybody like, hey, on Tuesday I'm gonna go to this place I've never been
Mm-hmm.
before. So it kind of like falls on me to keep myself safe. And like I'll give you an example. I was uh, I was shoeing a horse, and this was like really early on in my career as far as being on my own, as far as not working under someone. And this was in California, and I went to this place, and I'd shod the horses a couple times before. But where you went to do the horses, you had to go like down this hill into this kind of like canyon, and the barn was down at the bottom. Well, there was no phone service down there, and I was shoeing these horses. There was three of them, and I got the other two done. And the mare that they had, she was very herd bound, which means that if she couldn't see her friends, she would just not pay attention to anything you were
Mm-hmm.
doing. And I was like, and I almost got her all the way done. Like um, I think I had one more foot to do, and I was I was doing this the last hind foot, and I don't know if you've seen on the aprons that I wear, those leather
Mm-hmm.
aprons that you
Yeah.
see. There's these straps that go around the back of your legs, and they just clip
Yeah.
in, right? So it's just like a normal little clip. Well, that apron that I had was like completely worn out, and the middle of it was just like tore. And all these old guys had always told me, if your apron gets like that, like do not shoe horses that way. You will get hurt. And I was like, whatever. And they're expensive. They're not cheap, And like I'm starting out. I don't want to spend all this money on material. Like I just want to like kind of get going. And I'm shoeing this horse, and she pulls her leg away from me and steps down. And when she steps down, she steps in the strap that
Oh.
goes around my leg. So I'm attached to her leg
Oh.
at this point. And I know I'm like, I'm so screwed right now. Like I'm like, okay, well, see how this goes. And luckily it was so frayed on the one side, when she ran sideways it just ripped, and I was just standing there.
Whoa.
Yeah. So I'm by myself. No one knows where I am. The owners don't even really know I'm there, because a lot of the times, like after I get done with the horses, like the first couple times, the people are like, "Hey, I'm just gonna leave a check. You know where they go. Go ahead and do the stuff. I don't need to be here." Like I'll come, because sometimes I'll come on a Tuesday at 7 a.m. Like they're like, I have to go to
Yeah.
work. Um, so no one knew I was there. Um, I'm down in this hole. I could have laid there for who knows how long. But it's all situational awareness, right? Like after that, I was like, okay, I don't need to tell anybody where I'm at, but I definitely need to just like, if I'm by myself, I need to make way smarter decisions than that,
Yeah.
right? And it's just, when it comes to horses, it's like it's that fast, and it's like it's life changing. It's literally any horse at any time is so big and so strong that and it's not like if they'll kill you, like they can kill you. Like it's 100% like no questions asked. You get kicked in the wrong spot, it's over. And not having that situational awareness to keep yourself safe is just it's you're playing with fire. It's not something to be taken lightly. And that was like the one I got, like one little get out of jail free card, because that could have went so bad. I could have been just attached to that horse, stomped out, like the whole 9 yards. And it's that's just knowing your situation, knowing the animal in the situation that you're in, and just being able to read the whole thing and keep yourself safe, because nobody else is going to do it. And
And I think that
yeah.
people underestimate like how powerful they are, like themselves and also the
Oh
animal.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I remember seeing this one video of a guy getting kicked by a horse, and literally, man is here, kick happens, and it's not like boom. It was like boom. It was like
Is it the one where he's like branding? Is he
yes,
branding the
yes.
horse? Yeah, dude, that is the most gnarly kick of all time, dude. Like that one, oh my god, that one makes me just like, oh, because I've been on the end of that. I've been on like not the receiving end of something that extreme, but like I've definitely gotten kicked before, right?
Hmm.
And I know how much like a little just like love tap is, and it's not fun at all. Like just like a whack, just like kind of like, hey, stop doing that. But when they're like, hey, get away from me, like full contact, yeah, you don't want that at
No,
all. That is.
And we forget how powerful these animals are. There was a video, what was it? Another video online, and like it was just the sheer power. What was it I was watching yesterday? There was some dude was running with the bulls, and it was like
Hmm.
he was like, and he jumped, and he was like, yeah, and he turns around and like didn't see this one coming, and it was just like, boom, full contact, dude flew, and that happened to my uncle. My uncle was the same one that owned all the Arabians. He got into cattle after that, and he
Hmm.
got some property. And he had this big old bull that he brought in to be kind of like he was crossing breeds. I think it was a big, I don't even know what it was, man. It was a long time ago, but he was crossing breeds to kind of make this better beef cow that everyone was doing. And
Yeah.
so he brought in this bull was like huge. I mean, it was,
Was it a limousine by chance?
I don't know. I know that the
Yeah.
females, I'm pretty sure, were Herefordshires, and the
Okay.
male might have been an Angus or something like that. But it was
Right.
a big, big, big boy, and like,
Hmm.
and he it hit the gate, and the gate swung out so fast and hit him, and it knocked him back like it was like 25 feet flying through the
Yeah.
air, and
Hmm.
it just busted up his whole shoulder so bad. Saved him actually, because when they got him into the hospital, they started doing a check on him, finding out he needed a bypass surgery. So it was
Oh
actually
wow.
lucky at that time.
Wow.
But yeah, man, like what he was not a little guy. He was like 240, 250, 6'3",
Hmm.
and it just knocked him, back just this massive distance. It's like we're so insulated that we haven't had to face off against predators in so freaking long that people don't understand, like, that the world is freaking dangerous.
Do you follow like Nature is Metal
Oh,
on
dude,
Instagram?
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't know how I don't know that I feel like every person on the planet needs to just like follow that because it just gives you such a like perspective of like, oh, I'm just like a bag of meat that if like some bear just grabs me, it's over. Like it doesn't. I'm not.
My daughter, we're trying to, she's 6, and we're trying to teach her, about, she's like, she'll talk about zombies or werewolves. We watched Indiana Jones Temple of Doom the other day with her,
Yeah.
and she was like, we're like, you don't need to be afraid of this. This is not scary. This is fake. But I would then really quickly said, but there is some really scary stuff out there that you actually do need to be afraid of. Bears. Don't mess with bears. Like,
No.
Joe Rogan in his podcast was talking about, like, he's like, can you imagine being eaten by a bear? And like, it's just and it's just like, but the animal that freaks me out the most after watching Nature is Brutal, the one animal that terrifies me are those African wild dogs.
Dude, they're so. Oh my god! Like when they eat like the elephant like or like the water buffalo like stuck in the water,
And they're just,
you're just like
they always,
it's
first of
just
all, they
like
always go for the backside. And,
yep,
and then
yep,
And then I saw them like eating this one gazelle. And there's a reason those African dogs eat the way they do, because they're a small predator on, and where there's a lot of animals that are going to steal from them, like lions and hyenas and these
yeah,
animals that are and leopards are going to totally poach their meal. But the thing is like, they took down this one like little baby gazelle, and then 4 of them came and went and ripped it in pieces. And
yeah,
like, I was just
yep.
like that. And it was just like, wow, we are. But I at first I followed that page, and then I unfollowed it. I was like, oh, it's too much for me. I can't handle this. But I was like, no, dude,
Yeah.
no. It was, for me, it was like a form of meditation to remind myself that, there are things that, there's a reason that my daughter is still afraid of the dark, and there's a reason that all of us are, because
Yep.
for most of our animal history, at night, the dark was when things that went bump in the dark were extremely dangerous.
Yeah, we had to worry about big cats, right? Like big cats just coming and snatching you up. Yep, it's just a wrap.
Yep, and big cats are
Wrap.
like literally like, and I respect tigers and lions and things now. That, you know, good night, and it's done. You know, it's not a half a
So do you
problem.
do you eat meat?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. So I like to hunt, like I deer hunt, I hunt for, birds. I really like bird hunting. Um and I just like never understand where people like want to throw shade at like what I'm doing. And I understand like like the grip and grin, like oh, the whole that whole situation. But I'm saying like from an ethical standpoint,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
if you eat meat, and you don't if you don't take part in the food chain yourself, and then you want to say like I'm doing something, it's like watch Nature is Metal
Yeah.
and watch a baby gazelle that's just been born, right, like being born,
And ripped to
just
pieces.
snatched up, and you're like, how is what I'm doing
Well,
remotely close to
you know,
that,
one of the things that I think, and this comes back full circle with what we talked about today, is that there is this. Why is being a farrier so interesting on TikTok? Why was Daniel Day Lewis's performance as the butcher in Gangs of New York so interesting? Because,
right?
dude, the dude went and studied, old school butchering, and like, and one of the things I noticed in the U.S., and I think this is a big problem in the Western world, and they don't have it as much here. I roll up the street to the market, and they're still selling chickens, like the whole chicken, and
Mm-hmm.
cut the head off. You pluck the feathers out, and everything is sold alive, just right up the street, the market right here. It's all there,
Mm-hmm.
and you see the animal. Versus so much in the West, you go to your supermarket and you get this little cutlet of pork, and it's like, wow, it's this lovely little wonderful tasting thing. That was a pig. Like, and pigs are smarter than dogs, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not getting into ethical things here at all, man. It's just like, we are so separated from the world around us, is what I'm getting at.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
that's why I
Absolutely.
love Nature is Metal, because my friend is a Navy SEAL. He used to be. Now he makes really, really nice knives. And Andy Arabito, he makes the half-face blades, really great blades. And it's,
Oh, I've heard of that guy.
yeah,
I've heard of that guy before. Yeah.
we were roommates in San Diego. He's one of my brother's best friends.
You're
And
from San Diego?
I lived in San Diego. I'm actually from the Bay Area, but I grew up down in San Diego in San Pasquale area, Escondido.
Oh, dude, I'm from Ramona, California.
Dude, Ramona was right up the hill. I
Yeah,
was right at
yeah.
the bottom of the hill at San Pasquale Valley.
Yeah, I shot, dude, that's where I like every day I'd go down the 78 into
I,
Escondido. Like that's where I did. I
that's
worked so much right
that's where I
there. That's
lived, man.
wild.
That's wild. There you go. That's where I grew up. That's where I
But
went to high school, right at the bottom of the hill. You come down
oh,
the windy
crazy.
hill. There was like the little Christian school there, San Pasquale Academy, and that's where I went to school.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's
Wow.
awesome. Yeah,
Small world.
right. But that's it's going back to the San Pasquale Valley. I grew up when we were out catching rattlesnakes. We were out there, like just in it, man. And I hope that's something that kids in the future will still have too, man.
That's why I honestly came here is because they are so, and they being the state of California, they're so against like wildlife management,
Yeah,
and they manage it so poorly, and it's just sad. It's just sad because now they're just like insulating everybody. I feel like in California to where, they think that the world is just like these concrete jungles and like there's nothing. They don't get to go out and experience like what it's like. You still get to go to Big Bear and stuff like that, but I don't know. I just don't think that going to Big Bear and going skiing is the same as like walking out in the woods in Colorado
right,
for 8 miles and just being like, oh, this is just like nothing out here,
right.
and just being a part of it.
Well, and I think one of the interesting things that I think that people forget is that some of the greatest wildlife conservationists in history have been hunters. And you go back to like Teddy Roosevelt. Like the
Hmm.
man was an avid hunter. Like he
Yeah.
hunted everything, but he was also the person that set up the national park system because he wanted there to be a place that animals could be. And so and whether they manage things correctly or not, I'm saying like people that hunt want there to still be nature. You know what I mean?
Well, he's Teddy Roosevelt's the reason that we have deeded land to us. That's like why all of us are public landowners, right? And that's why there's just like eminent domain hasn't came in and just snatched up all the land. It's like so that all of us can experience nature.
Right.
And I don't think a lot of people understand that. Like I can't remember the exact percentage, but like of all things that are related to hunting, like a good amount of it, like I think it's like 5 to 10% are goes straight to conservation. You
Exactly.
know, and I don't know. It's just frustrating because people look at it with such a negative stigma, and for good reason, because there is people on social media that kind of do and the whole like some of the outdoor TV stuff where they're just like naming these deer and doing weird stuff. Like I'm not really into that, but the people that are just doing it because they want to just sustain themselves, like me, like like I have in my freezer right now, like I have a bunch of goose that I killed in January and made it into some summer sausage, and I gave it to my friends, and I eat it, and I know exactly like the process, like where that came from,
Yep.
how it got here, and to me that's just like it's a good feeling, and I know exactly what it is, where it came from, and it's just it's really rewarding.
And that life is still being honored and respected. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like, and I think that's one of the most important things. And one of the things that I was coming back to what Andy said, and Andy would point out to me, he's like, the world that you think exists is not what the world is really like. And I think that's one of the biggest problems that everyone has. And I mean, this could be, and I'm not talking liberal conservative. I'm not talking. I'm saying, we all have a preconceived idea of what the world is like. And you step outside your own country, and suddenly there's a whole new, like, and get back to my example of the guy that was, sewage diving.
Yeah.
Like that, mind blown, because it was just in a different part of the world. Things were handled in a different way, And we were watching this YouTube video the other day where it was the coldest city in the world, and like how when they were walking across the town, they had to, like, people could only be outside for like 5 minutes before they had to go into some building. It was insane, man. It was the way this whole city functioned. It was somewhere up in Siberia, I think. It was just like, it wasn't like Antarctica. It was just like this super frigid area that was like still a city, and it was wild. It was a
Was it
wild.
called? Was that documentary Happy People by chance?
Maybe, I don't know.
Do you,
I jumped in the middle of my wife and daughter watching it, and I was just blown away.
Yeah, Happy People's. I think it's a Werner Herzog documentary about these reindeer herders in the taiga, and they're just like the happiest people, and they live in like this sub-zero culture, and they just live off the land, like herding reindeer. Like it's crazy. It's just
That
crazy.
wasn't it, but that sounds awesome, and I'm gonna
Yeah,
have to look that up.
yeah. It's called Happy People.
This was like a city in Russia. These people were not happy. It was like everyone was really
Yeah. They're like, what am I doing here?
we
Yeah.
need vodka to stay
Yeah,
warm,
yeah, just potatoes and vodka.
right?
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah,
Man,
people just I don't know. I think that you get so stuck to this thing, right? Like you
yes,
just and
yes,
I'm guilty of it. I'm very and like I'm not saying I'm above it. Like I'm not saying that and the slightest. So don't get me wrong. I really and it's hard for me because now with posting and monitoring like how all my stuff goes, I'm not necessarily looking at like I'm not just like scrolling through an Instagram feed, but I am addicted to like how is this video doing and da 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 da,
yep,
and I like have to just like really try to like post stuff and just put it away and just be like okay
yep,
over here because I'll catch myself at dinner with friends and stuff and I'm like looking at like how a TikTok video did and I'm like why am I doing this? I need to like talk to my friends. Like
right.
it's 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 hard. It's really hard, but I really I try to manage it and
Right.
I'm not very good at it. I'll admit I'm not very good at it.
If you could go back in time and give some advice to your younger self, what advice would you like to give yourself? Not changing the past, just advice.
Just advice. I think I would tell myself like save some more money. Don't do all the I don't know though because like I've had so many good experiences.
Yeah.
I guess it would just be. I wish I would have started kind of like developing myself as far as like really trying to like figure out who I am and like what I want to do and do all those things and just like kind of go down that path a little bit sooner. Instead of
Yeah.
just kind of like wandering around. But I guess that's just part of figuring it out, right? You just kind of wandering around and then something sticks, I guess.
Right.
But yeah, I think I would just, and I probably tell myself like, just you're doing fine, because I would always just tell myself like, like I gotta get after it. But I don't know. Yeah, just save a little bit of money and just have a little bit more fun. I don't know.
I like that. Well,
What
brother,
about
this
you?
has been for me, yeah,
Yeah.
shit. That's a good one. Normally people don't throw it back at me. Um, I don't know, man. I'm I'm the type of guy that um, nothing ever came easy to me, ever. And I'm the type of guy that like, when I was working in judo, I wasn't physically gifted. I wasn't the guy who just was like, we had one guy. I played volleyball too. We had one guy in my college. The dude could jump. He had like a 45-inch vert, and he was just like, and he couldn't play, and he just had, but like he didn't really have heart. You know what I mean? And it
Mm-hmm.
was just so easy to him. And for me though, and I'm not a judgment of anyone. Everyone's got their own journey. But for me, nothing ever came easy. And I think there were so many times that I really wanted to quit. And I just would keep going. But I would probably go back and tell myself, keep hustling, man. It'll pay off eventually. And
Yeah.
maybe you don't get good at something, but you become a better human being. And I like that.
Well, it's just developing like the ability to get better at something, right? Like that's
Right?
really what it's about, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I think so. I mean, what is it? There was like a great book back in the day called Zen and the Art of Archery, and it was
Yeah.
like and I love the whole idea of that. Like, it's not about hitting the target; it's about the journey. It's all about the journey,
Mm-hmm.
about getting, and then suddenly you've been doing this for 50 years and you hit the target.